At 22, I embarked on an unforgettable spring break road trip with two close friends, our hearts set on exploring the rugged beauty of Zion, Bryce, and Moab. Our car was packed to the brim with camping gear, an assortment of snacks, and an excessive stash of iced coffee, everything we needed for the adventure we'd been dreaming about all year. The trip had been seamless, filled with laughter and breathtaking vistas, until that fateful afternoon in the remote stretches of southern Utah, somewhere between Escalante and Boulder, that we'd pulled into a desolate trailhead surrounded by a surreal landscape of jagged red rock formations stretching endlessly under a vast, cloudless sky. It was the kind of place that felt otherworldly, like stepping onto the surface of Mars. The air was dry, carrying the faint scent of sagebrush, and there was no cell service to connect us to the outside world. After a few miles of hiking, my legs grew heavy, and I decided to head back to our car to rest while my friends continued exploring. They handed me the keys with a smile, and I made my way back, the crunch of gravel under my boots echoing in the stillness. Settling into the driver's seat, I cracked the windows, letting the warm desert breeze drift through. The solitude was calming at first, the silence broken only by the occasional call of a distant bird. But as I sat there, a nagging memory surfaced. The gas gauge had been hovering dangerously close to empty when we'd arrived. A quick glance confirmed it. The needle was barely above the red line. In a moment of reckless optimism, I decided to drive to the nearest town to refuel and return before dusk. I convinced myself I could make it, ignoring the blinking fuel warning light that had flickered earlier. It was a decision I'd soon regret. The engine roared to life, and I navigated the dusty, winding back road, the car rattling over uneven terrain. The landscape was starkly beautiful, with towering cliffs casting long shadows as the sun began its descent. But within 10 minutes, the fuel light began flashing insistently, and the engine coughed, then sputtered. The car rolled to a stop beside a patch of brittle, sun-bleached scrub, and the world fell eerily silent. My phone was useless, no bars, no signal. The nearest gas station was a mystery, and the sun was sinking toward the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold. A cold knot of unease tightened in my chest. For 20 minutes, I sat in the car, scanning the empty road for any sign of life. The wind whispered through the scrub, mimicking the sound of an approaching engine, only to fade into nothingness. I stepped out, pacing around the car, my boots kicking up clouds of dust. The sky darkened, the vibrant colors of the desert fading into twilight. The longer I waited, the more isolated I felt, as if the vastness of the landscape was swallowing me whole. Then, in the distance, a vehicle appeared, a rusted red pickup truck, its paint chipped and faded, looking like it belonged in a gritty Western film. My heart lifted as I waved both arms frantically, signaling for help. The truck slowed, and the driver, a man in his late 40s or early 50s, leaned out the window. His dirty baseball cap shadowed his eyes, and a grimy beard framed an unsettling grin. "Ran out of gas?" he asked, his voice low and gravelly, his gaze lingering a little too long. "Yeah," I replied, forcing a polite but firm tone. "Could you help me get to a gas station, or maybe give me a ride?" His response was a laugh, not a friendly chuckle, but a deep, mocking sound that made my skin crawl. "That was dumb," he said, shaking his head. "Pretty girl like you. Should know better." Before I could respond, he floored the gas, the truck's tires kicking up a cloud of dust that stung my eyes and left me coughing. I stood frozen, watching the taillights vanish around a bend, my heart pounding as a mix of anger and fear surged through me. The temperature dropped as night crept in, the desert's warmth giving way to a biting chill. I climbed back into the car, locking the doors and cracking the windows just enough to let air circulate. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional rustle of brush in the wind. I tried to stay calm, telling myself my friends would return soon, their voices or footsteps breaking the eerie quiet. But the sky darkened further, the red rocks turning into shadowy silhouettes, and the desert felt vast and indifferent. Every sound seemed amplified, a distant snap of a twig, the faint howl of the wind. My eyes darted to the side mirrors, catching fleeting movements in the shadows that were probably just the wind, but felt like something more sinister. I tried playing music to drown out the unease, but the familiar tunes felt jarring, as if they were broadcasting my presence to the empty wilderness. I shut it off after a few seconds, my nerves frayed. Hours dragged by, each minute stretching into eternity. Then, headlights pierced the darkness, approaching slowly from the direction the truck had gone. My stomach lurched as I recognized the same rusted red pickup, but this time, a second figure sat in the passenger seat. A man in a hoodie, his face obscured by shadows. The truck pulled up beside my car, its engine idling with a low, menacing rumble. The driver leaned out, tapping a wrench against the door, the metallic clank echoing in the stillness. The passenger stepped out, a flashlight in hand, and approached my window. He knocked, the beam of light blinding me. I froze, my breath shallow, my hand gripping the door lock. "You sure you don't need help now?" the driver called, his voice dripping with a chilling amusement. The man with the flashlight knocked again, harder this time. My pulse thundered in my ears, my fingers trembling as I fumbled for the keys I'd removed hours earlier. In a surge of panic, I slammed my hand onto the horn, the blaring sound shattering the silence. I kept pressing, the noise frantic and unrelenting. The man with the flashlight stumbled back, and the driver shouted something unintelligible. The passenger bolted back to the truck, and it sped off, swallowed by the night that I didn't stop honking. For another minute, my hand shaking as the sound echoed across the desert. Relief flooded me when new headlights appeared from the opposite direction, a park ranger's truck. The ranger, a middle-aged man with a weathered face, took one look at my pale expression and asked what had happened. I spilled the story in a rush, my words tumbling over each other. He scanned the area with his flashlight, but found no trace of the truck. "Plenty of bad folks out here," he said quietly, his eyes fixed on the darkness. "If you're ever stuck like this again, have a plan. Out here, help doesn't always come, and the wrong people notice fast." My friends returned shortly after, their faces pale with worry. They'd assumed I'd gone for gas and started hiking back when I didn't return. We rode to town in the ranger's truck, the silence heavy with unspoken fear. That night changed me. I no longer stop on empty roads, and I never assume a smile means safety. Some people laugh out of nervousness. Others laugh because they've already made up their minds about what comes next. As a wildlife ecologist, my work often takes me to remote corners of the world, where I spend weeks immersed in nature, mapping habitats and collecting data. In May 2023, I was in central Colorado, working on a contract project in a lesser-known section of a national forest. My task was to document vegetation patterns along a newly expanded trail system, a job that filled me with purpose. The solitude of fieldwork, free from emails and deadlines, was my sanctuary. Armed with my gear, a clipboard, and a handheld GPS, I set out at sunrise, parking my Subaru at a gravel pull-off and logging the waypoint. The trail was quiet, the air crisp with the scent of pine and damp earth. I noted fresh deer tracks, fox scat, and the graceful arc of a golden eagle overhead. The only signs of human presence were faint boot prints, likely left by a trail crew weeks earlier. The day felt routine, each observation grounding me in the rhythm of the forest. But as I returned to my car after a 14-mile hike, exhaustion weighing on my limbs, I noticed the gas gauge hovering just above empty. I had no cell signal to check for nearby stations, but I vaguely recalled a ranger station about 10 miles back. I figured I'd drive slowly, conserve fuel, and make it there. If it was closed, I'd wait for a ranger. It seemed like a minor miscalculation, nothing to worry about. I was wrong. As I drove along a narrow fire road, a white truck with Forest Service markings pulled up behind me, its headlights flashing. I eased to the side, assuming it was a ranger. A man stepped out, tall and lean, in his late 50s, with a tanned face and a thick white mustache. His green pants and beige shirt, complete with a radio clipped to his belt, screamed official. He moved with a deliberate slowness, his aviator sunglasses reflecting the late afternoon sun. "Afternoon," he said, his voice calm. "Car trouble?" "Not yet," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "I'm low on gas and out of signal. Heading to the ranger station." He nodded, his eyes lingering on my car. "Station's closed. Today, I can grab some fuel from the depot for you. Won't take long." His offer seemed genuine, and I thanked him, relieved. But then he stayed by my window, his gaze shifting between me and the interior of my car. "You out here alone?" he asked, his tone still polite but probing. I hesitated. "Yeah, just me." His next question caught me off guard. "Did you check in with anyone? Log your trip with the station or your company?" I admitted I'd only left a message with a coworker. Then, casually, he asked, "Married?" The question hung in the air, and a chill ran through me. "Why do you ask?" I said, my voice sharper than intended. He chuckled, but it felt forced. "Just wondering if someone's expecting you tonight. Don't want anyone worrying." His tone had shifted, carrying an undercurrent that made my stomach twist. I stepped back slightly, my instincts screaming. "Caution, can I see your ID?" I asked, trying to sound professional. His demeanor changed instantly, less relaxed, almost guarded. He scratched his neck, avoiding my gaze. "Left it in the truck," he muttered, gesturing vaguely behind him. I pressed, "Mind if I take a look?" He backed away, his voice clipped. "Gotta head out if I'm getting you that gas." Without another word, he climbed into his truck and drove off, leaving a trail of dust in his wake. Adrenaline surged through me. I'd worked with rangers before. They didn't ask personal questions or dodge ID requests. Something was wrong. I decided to head to the ranger station anyway, closed or not. When I arrived, my heart sank. The building was a ghost of its former self, with peeling paint, broken shutters, and a faded sign that read, "National Forest Ranger Station." The flagpole stood bare, and the air felt heavy with neglect. Parked out front was the same white truck, its windows dark, no plates visible. The cab was empty, but the sight of it sent a shiver down my spine. I reversed quickly, my tires crunching on the gravel, and drove until I had a signal. I called my coworker, recounting everything, and she urged me to return to town. I also contacted a ranger I'd worked with previously, who sounded alarmed and told me to file a report at the nearest field office. At the ranger kiosk, I described the man and the truck. The ranger on duty stared at me, his face grim. "That station's been closed for 5 years," he said. "No fuel, no staff since the 2018 budget cuts." I gave a full statement to the county sheriff, but their searches turned up nothing. No trucks matching my description were registered to the Forest Service, and no uniforms had been checked. Out. Whoever he was, he'd vanished. I still work in remote areas, but I'm more cautious now. I log detailed routes, carry a beacon, and trust my instincts. A uniform doesn't guarantee safety, and sometimes the person asking too many questions is the one you should fear. As a remote software developer, I cherish the freedom to work from anywhere, but the endless Zoom calls and screen time can wear me down. When the pressure builds, I escape to the wilderness for a digital detox. In April 2023, I rented a secluded cabin in western Montana, surrounded by towering evergreens and the gentle sound of snowmelt trickling through the forest. The isolation was exactly what I needed. No neighbors, no Wi-Fi, just the quiet hum of nature. By Sunday afternoon, I felt rejuvenated, my mind clear and my spirit light. I packed my bag, locked the cabin, and began the drive back to Missoula. The dirt roads were slick with melting snow, and patches of ice clung to the shaded curves. About 40 minutes in, on a desolate stretch with no signs or traffic, my car began to falter. The engine stuttered, then died, and I coasted to a stop. The gas gauge stared back at me, needle firmly on empty. I cursed myself. I'd driven more than planned, exploring side roads and running errands, and hadn't refueled. My phone showed no signal, the screen a useless gray. The nearest gas station, a rundown wooden shack I'd passed on the way in, was about 5 or 6 miles back. With no other options, I locked the car, grabbed my backpack, and started walking, a half-empty water bottle in hand and a jacket that did little against the biting wind. The forest was quiet at first, with only the sound of my footsteps and the distant tap of a woodpecker. But as clouds gathered overhead, the air grew heavy, and a cold rain began to fall, soaking through my clothes. By the time I reached the gas station, I was shivering, my teeth chattering. The man inside, an older guy with a weathered face, took pity on me, letting me warm up by a small heater. He filled a plastic gas can and handed me a black trash bag to use as a makeshift poncho. Grateful, I started the trek back, my sneakers squelching in the mud. The rain intensified, turning the road into a slippery mess. The trees loomed overhead, their branches swaying like silent sentinels. The light faded, and the forest felt alive. Watching my every step. As I approached the spot where I'd left my car, my heart stopped. The headlights were on, casting a weak glow through the rain. I knew I'd turned everything off. Then I heard it. Music, faint but unmistakable, coming from my car radio. It was a song from my college days, one I hadn't played in years. Dread washed over me as I saw a figure in the passenger seat, sitting perfectly still. He turned his head slowly, his face illuminated just enough to reveal a cold, empty smile that I froze, the gas can heavy in my hand. My knees trembled, but I didn't wait to see what he'd do next. I turned and ran, plunging into the dense forest. The ground was slick with pine needles and mud, branches clawing at my arms as I stumbled forward. My breath came in ragged gasps, and I kept glancing back, expecting to see him following. The forest was a maze of shadows, but I pushed on, driven by raw panic. After what felt like an eternity, I stumbled onto a two-lane highway. My clothes were soaked, my shoes caked in mud. A few cars passed, one honking but not stopping. Finally, a blue SUV slowed, and a woman leaned out, concern etched on her face. "Are you okay?" she asked. I blurted out my story, my voice shaking. Her husband frowned, saying they'd just driven that road and hadn't seen anyone. I didn't argue. I just needed to get to town. We passed the spot where my car had been. It was gone, only wet tire marks veering toward the trees. At the sheriff's office, I filed a report describing the man and the car. 2 days later, they found my car abandoned 15 miles away, hidden behind a grove of trees. Everything was gone except the empty gas can, sitting upright in the passenger seat. That smile still haunts me, the calm, predatory way he waited. Now, I keep a lockbox under my car, carry pepper spray, and share my itinerary with someone I trust. I don't walk alone if I can avoid it, because I know he was waiting for me to return.my YouTube channel, a modest travel vlog, thrives on showcasing hidden gems, abandoned places, scenic trails, and off-the-beaten-path adventures. In October 2022, I was filming a series called Tennessee Backwoods, exploring forgotten corners of the state. That morning, I'd finished shooting at Deep Creek Bluff, a stunning location with cliffs overlooking a winding river. With my GoPros, drone, and camping gear packed, I was ready to head to the next town, 40 miles away according to my GPS. My gas tank was just under a quarter full, but I figured the downhill route would get me there 10 minutes into the drive. I passed a weathered general store straight out of a bygone era, its wooden exterior peeling and a faded Coca-Cola sign hanging by the door. A man sat out front, his gray beard and grease-stained flannel blending into the rustic scene. I pulled over, asking if there was a quicker route to the gas station. He pointed behind the store to a fire road, claiming it would shave 15 miles. Off the trip, your sedan'll make it, he said with a shrug. Might rattle a bit, but it's faster. He led me to a rusted gate, beyond which a narrow dirt path disappeared into dense trees. The detour appealed to my viewer's love for raw, unfiltered adventure, so I thanked him and turned onto the path. The gravel quickly gave way to packed dirt, rocks, and puddles, the forest closing in around me. Branches scraped the car's roof, and my GPS froze, leaving me with no signal and a blinking dot in a digital void. The road twisted deeper into the wilderness, with no signs or intersections, just an endless tunnel of trees. A half-collapsed fence flickered in the shadows, the only hint of human presence, long abandoned. After about 15 miles, the trees parted into a clearing, and my blood ran cold. For men stood in a line across the road, their faces expressionless. They weren't hikers or workers, no gear, no vests, just standing there. One held up a phone, filming me. My instincts screamed danger. Was this a prank? A rival YouTube crew? I slowed, my heart racing, as a tall man in a camouflage jacket stepped toward my car, his hands empty, but his posture menacing. The others followed that I shifted into reverse, but my tires sank into a soft ditch I hadn't seen. The wheels spun uselessly as the men approached. Panic took over. I grabbed my camera bag, yanked the keys from the ignition, and bolted into the woods. Branches tore at my clothes, and thorns pricked my skin as I ran, the forest swallowing me whole. I didn't stop until my lungs burned, collapsing under a rotting log to catch my breath. The silence was heavy, broken only by the creak of trees and my ragged breathing. I stayed there all night, clutching my camera bag, convinced I heard whispers, or the click of a phone recording .at dawn. I moved cautiously, following the slope downhill until I found a faded trail marker. It led me to a ranger outpost, where I stumbled in, covered in mud and twigs. The ranger listened to my story, his face growing serious. "There's no fire road out there," he said. "Not since the 80s. Just trees." The sheriff found my car the next day, abandoned a few miles away, stripped of everything but tire tracks leading nowhere. I still film in remote places, but I'm more cautious now. I keep a full tank, carry a satellite beacon, and avoid shortcuts from strangers. If a road isn't on the map, there's a reason. If you're as shaken as I was, hit that like button, subscribe, and share your own stories. The real danger isn't always on the road. Sometimes it's waiting just beyond the trees. Stay sharp, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.